Welcome to the Book of Dad Radio Show. I'm Dr. Robert Benson. As always, before we get started, we're going to say thank you to Jehovah. Thanking for our families, thanking for work and our ability to do the things we're able to do. Book of Dad Radio Show, and I'm hanging out with my main man, Eddy Gee. What's up, Eddy?
What's up, sir? How you feeling today?
I'm doing great. I'm waiting for you to say something about me or something crazy. What is it? Come on.
I'm going to be good today. We have a classy guest today. I'm not going
so you want to act like you got class because we got a classy guest.
That's right. Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, speaking of class and classy guests, we're going to talk to a person who is a champion of a classy issue, and that's diversity. A pure champion of diversity. We have with us today Dr. Brandi Baldwin. Dr. Baldwin, what's happening with you today? Talk to us.
Let me tell you, I'm excited. I'm excited to be here. I think we might be cutting up a little bit, but I am excited for the discussion. So let's get into it.
Yeah. Hey, so how on earth did you become a champion of diversity? Obviously, there was an experience or something happened that was litmus that changed your life around and made you the champion about diversity that you are. Please share that with us. And you got the mic. Talk to us.
Okay. Sure. So, you know what? My journey into the diversity, equity, and inclusion space is unique in that I started off doing professional development workshops, primarily because I was starting off as an entrepreneur, trying to figure out what to do. I remember being in grad school and one of my advisors said, no one's going to hire you to be a corporate consultant, which is the track that I wanted to be on, because you're too young, you don't have enough job experience. And at the time, the model for corporate consultants was typically a male, maybe a female, but mostly men that had worked maybe 30, 40 years in corporate America, retired, and then became a consultant. Typically it was a white male. Nothing wrong with that, but that was the model at the time. So we're talking, sure, a little bit over 15 years ago. I'm just like, I'm going to be a consultant, and they were like, sit down.
15 years ago, you were in high school, weren't you? No?
No. I'll be 40 this year.
Whoa.
So, yes. I have a teenage daughter. She just passed her permit driving test. I got a lot of stuff going on over here, but I got shea butter, black don't crack, So I started doing these workshops, and as they got more popular, companies used to start to bring me in for the millennials. That's how it started. They said, oh my gosh, this thing that you do and everything you're talking about, do you do that for young professionals? And at the time, that was that niche demographic. That was that group that organizations recognized were different, right? So back in the day, and DEI is not new. It was like multicultural. There were so many different names, right, that we used to call DEI.
Melting pot.
And that was the time when I kind of got in that space organically, where they said, hey, we have certain segments of our workforce, and your message, we think, can apply. Long story short, as we know, the millennial generation is about that life. When it comes to diversity and inclusion and what they want to see in their workplace, they really have been at the helm of pushing that. And so full circle moment, as I kind of got my reps up, got more experience and things of that nature, naturally, those same organizations would say, can you come back and speak to our other kind of niche groups? This is when ERGs started to become popular. And so our veterans, our young professionals, our Black employee resource group. And since then, I've had an opportunity to work in terms of a DEI space for companies like Google, like the federal government, pharmaceutical companies, and you name it, for that DEI piece. So it's been great. Being a champion for DEI is very challenging. I'll say that because my approach really is accountability and upholding the standards of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And so I don't play any games, and I call people up. I don't call them out, but I call them higher when they're talking a good game, but maybe not in alignment with their actions.
Let me ask you a question about that. It's a very interesting point you mentioned, because we're talking about diversity and inclusion. Me, I see it as counterintuitive on some levels, because when you're trying to include someone, you end up excluding someone else or another population. What are your thoughts on that? And what do you think, or have you noticed that there is a population or demographic that's been excluded or minimized on some levels?
Well, here's the thing. So the organizations that do a great job are truly inclusionary, okay? And that means that they are honoring the D, the E, and the I in every aspect of its meaning. And I'm cool with that. But I find that the clients that usually call out, for assistance from me are the ones that are in that in-between space where they value diversity, equity, and inclusion. They want to be inclusive, but maybe their approach has actually been exclusionary. So they'll do things like sit their white employees, for example, in a professional development presentation on unconscious bias, and the presenter is pretty much making it seem like the only people who have biases in the audience are the white professionals, and everyone else doesn't have that, So I've seen the execution of DEI programs definitely be exclusionary. And I think that is why I have gained popularity with some and maybe others that don't really like my approach, because if you're going to do DE&I, then we're going to honor the D, the E, and the I. If you're not, then just say that you're only focused on one specific aspect. Say that we're just doing racial equity work. Say that we're just doing disability work or whatever. Say that. Don't say DE&I as a catchment for your strategy if you're really only focusing on what. Make it plain, make it clear. And I'm very particular about that. But you're right. It can be exclusionary and kind of counterintuitive to the whole premise. And that's why I think that it gets a bad rap sometimes, and rightly so, from lots of folks who are picking up on that component and maybe seeing organizations not do their best in execution.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
A quick question on that. When you have corporations that approach you, do you find that there's different situations where the effort is genuine or the effort is forced? And can you tell the difference, or does that make a difference in your approach of solving their problem?
It doesn't make a difference in my approach, but it does make a difference if they get past word go with me and my firm. So here's the thing. They come in the good door. You have client A and client B. Client A is fumbling around. They're making mistakes, but they're humble enough to say, we don't know what the heck we're doing, Dr. Brandi. We need some guidance. And I tell organizations, you might as well stay still than go fast in the wrong direction. Just pause instead of trying to throw spaghetti at the wall. Those organizations are the clients that I have the best results with, and they're appreciative because they were humble enough to be honest about their gaps. And we can have that accountability relationship, right? When I go to my lawyer, I don't want my lawyer to spare my feelings. I want my lawyer to say, you got some risks in this area. When I go to my financial advisor, right, I want my financial advisor to say, there's a little risky behavior over here. We got to tighten that up. That's the consultant that I am and the approach that I take. Then you got client B that comes in and says, Dr. Brandi, we are 150% on this DEI thing. And we just really would love someone to come in and just help us do unconscious bias training. And we understand that the white people in our organization are really the major part of the problem. And we understand that Black people will never have an opportunity to be their best. So we just need you to come in and help us really make up a program, anything you want to do, so that the Black employees can just rise to the top. We're actually, they do this spiel, right? And then I'm like, wait a minute, hold up. Do you have data? Did you do an assessment? Do you know about the EEOC? You can't just hire a handful of Black and brown people. Just, we don't, and those are the organizations that 9 times out of 10, they don't even make it past go. But if they're savvy enough and they slip under my radar and kind of switch up later, I'll be honest, I usually wind up firing them. And every year I fired organization. I posted on LinkedIn probably a year and a half ago, but I fired an organization, $63,000 contract. Bye, thank you. It's been great. And matter of fact, we'll give you a refund back because you're playing. And at the end of the day, the reputation that your employees are connected to your company. You can't play behind the scenes and do this work. And so it's challenging dealing with leaders, dealing with egos. And it's a sensitive topic, especially when politics sometimes can seep into this kind of DEI space. very challenging work, but I'll tell you right now that the people that are serious, even if they're not perfect, in the long run, they actually make great strides in this area.
Outstanding. Hey, well, that's a great piece and great information. But of course, we got to take a quick break, and we're going to come back and finish picking the brain of Dr. Brandi Baldwin. This is Book of That Radio Show. I'm hanging out with my main man, Eddy Gee, and we're being enlightened by the great Dr. Brandi Baldwin. We'll be right back.
See why listeners from over 150 countries around the world follow the Book of Dad radio show. Join Dr. Robert Benson and Eddy Gee as they chat with special guests who share their stories and information that will change your life. Watch and listen on lifeandspiritonline.com or subscribe to the Book of Dad radio show on Apple Podcast, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or wherever you get your podcast. Brought to you by the NASCA Network.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Book of Dad Radio Show with Dr. Robert Benson and me, Eddy Gee. And today we have the fabulous Dr. Brandi Baldwin, who is schooling us on DE&I, letting us know really what goes on behind the scenes. And we appreciate her for that. And I wanted to finish up. The reason I asked you that question earlier was I used to work for the power company in Philadelphia. And this was one of my first jobs. It was back in blah, blah, 80 something, right? And the reason I was able to get hired is because that company, it was a large corporate company, but they were being sued for diversity, right? So as you mentioned to, their result or the way they wanted to approach it was, well, we'll just go out in the community, we'll test some people, we'll hire a bunch of black people and everything will be okay, right?
Yep.
And that's what they did. I mean, that was good for me.
You're like, I'll take that. I'll take that black check. Thank you.
Right. I'll take the black check. But that's what was interesting to me when you talked about companies that really aren't sincere about what they're doing. And I guess it comes back to haunt them in the long run because it has to work on both sides, as you said.
Yes.
So I just wanted to know about your current journey. I follow you on social media and everything ever since I met you years ago, and I watched your progress because you're a positive leader, you're an entrepreneur, and that's the kind of people that we love to talk to here. And you put a post up about a situation that you had at the workplace. Yes. So let's hear a little bit about that.
Oh, okay. So let me give you an overview. We all know 2020, George Floyd happened, and I got a call from a colleague saying, hey, as you know, I am, high up in the tourism and hospitality industry. We have a consortium of leaders that are getting together from all type of organizations. We're talking the top organizations in tourism and hospitality. So this organization and the board, has people from Marriott, Kimpton Hotels, Carnival Cruises, everything in the middle, right? And would you like to be a part of this? We really think that we need some young blood, to be truthful. We need, some millennial energy. And you're in the DEI space as well. So, and this is kind of a startup venture. You're an entrepreneur. Would you like to be on a founding member on the executive committee? I said, yes. Say less. I'm there. Had served on this organization since then. And the end of 2022, the CEO and that same individual, the executive director at the time, said, you know what, we really think you would be great as the board chair going into 2023. And I'm like, who, me? They love me. They really love me. And I'll be honest, I had a moment when I thought, the people on this board, we're talking about the top CEOs in tourism from California all the way to the East Coast. So I was thinking initially, I'm not qualified. How the heck, did I even get an opportunity? But God, when I can't figure it out, I'm going to attribute it to the Lord. Right. So I said, you're going to step into this role and you're going to do your best. And why not? If not you, then who? Started in 2023. And this individual started to onboard me, let me know the priorities of the organization, things of that nature, and said, you know what, you're going to be the new face. We're going to work together. We're really going to, have these ideas on things that we can do. And I'll be honest, about 90 days in, once I got my footing, once I understood what my vision was going to be and how I would approach my tenure as board chair of the organization, he no longer could sort of be the person behind the person. And I think that as that transitioned and I was stepping really into the full power of my role and the authority that I had being the highest ranking member of the organization, I think that that's where our professional relationship shifted. Over the next several months in 2023, I experienced being yelled at on Zoom calls, being berated, being demeaned. I would speak to board members about like feedback. What can we do to improve the organization? I would take those ideas back to this individual and be told, I don't want to hear another thing from anything that the board wants to do. They need to cut a check. That's what they need to do. I don't have to be here. I'm not doing any extra work. I'm not doing so you and the board, you can go somewhere, And I was like, wait a minute, awkward, And so for me, I said, you know what? I know this individual has a lot of responsibilities. They're stressed. I started to make excuses. And so for anyone listening who has been in a toxic work environment and things of that nature, that's what we tend to do. And I was making excuses. It didn't feel good. Fast forward, I said, you know what, let me check in with the CEO because I think this pattern is becoming a pattern. I don't like it. And so I went to the CEO. I said, hey, I'm thinking I got the smoking gun. I'm like, wait till I tell him about all, I got my notes. I've been yelled at. I got the time, the date, the inflection of tone for the yell. Listen, I told the CEO. The CEO didn't flinch. The CEO said, we already know. We previously have hired a coach because his communication style and he's rubbed other. I said, wait a minute, I'm late to the party. You already know? He said, you know what we're going to do? We're going to meet with this individual. We're going to meet to bring your notes and we're going to let him know, I'm not putting up with this and he knows better than to treat me that way. So the fact he's doing it to you. And I think the CEO was genuine and sincere, but we got into the meeting. I aired out all the notes that I collected on the individual thinking that we were doing some real accountability. The CEO actually had his talking points as well, but when the meeting concluded, the behavior got worse. So that was a signal to me that the CEO really doesn't have power, that whatever they had going on or whatever information one had on the other or whatever the dynamic was, I thought when you don't pipe down in a meeting with the CEO and the board chair, that tells you that there's something else going on. The end of the year came and they asked me to continue. They said, please stay on as board chair. And I pretty much said, I can't do this for mental health reasons. I can't be on this individual's hit list anymore. Wow. I haven't seen a change in the behavior. I was literally going to bow out gracefully and go on about my business. And I remember seeing the headline with Dr. Antoinette Bailey, who committed suicide as a higher ed leader earlier in January because of alleged workplace bullying at the hands of her boss. And when I read that article, it reminded me of the things I was dealing with. So I felt in my spirit that the Lord said, if you don't say anything, the blood is on your hands. So any woman or person that comes up after you in this role that experiences his poor behavior, it's going to be on you because your values are such that you need to speak out. So I wrote a letter to the board saying, unfortunately, just so you all know, because you probably don't know why I'm not continuing as board chair, this is the reason why. Here goes some receipts, because y'all not going to try to make me out to be a liar. Here goes some emails and some receipts. The CEO has known about this and hasn't done his part. And this is how God works. I sent this on Monday, January 15th, MLK Day. Silence on Tuesday. I didn't hear anything. I said, uh-oh. I'm in trouble now. Uh-oh, what happened? Something told me on Wednesday. By Wednesday, I said, you know what? I remember a young lady that used to work with him years ago. Never heard her say anything bad about him. They were like peas in a pod. So I said, hey, I sent a text message. Hey, person, it's me, Dr. Brandi. Is this still your number? Because I hadn't spoken to her since before the pandemic, probably 5-6 years. And a couple hours later, she responded, hey, Dr. Brandi, it is me. How are you? Oh, my gosh. I said, weird question. But I literally have been working with so-and-so for the last year. It was horrific. I never heard you say anything negative about him. What was your experience? And she said, oh my gosh, I can't believe he's still behaving that way. She sent me a long text message with her experience and another woman's name who had the same issue. I said, have her reach out to me if she's willing. This young lady reached out to me, and she had the name of another person she worked with that had the same experience. By Friday, that same week, January 15th, we still on MLK Day. By that Friday, I had 8 names of other women who over the last decade, he had treated the exact same way. And so it shifted everything. I didn't know them from a can of paint. And over 3 weeks, we got together and wrote an open letter to the tourism and hospitality industry to share our collective stories dealing with this one person. The reason why we did that is because these other young ladies spoke to HR, they spoke to their leaders, they spoke to other CEOs, and nothing ever happened. With me being the highest ranking member of this organization, nothing ever happened. So we said, you know what, for our healing, we're going to put it out there. We're not calling for resignations. We don't want anyone to be terminated. This is about our journey and shedding light on darkness. And I reached out before. I was so nervous because I was kind of like spearheading this group. The day before we put the letter out, y'all getting an exclusive right now. This is exclusive.
Yeah, hey, bring it.
Off the presses. Let me tell y'all, because I tried
TMZ is here.
TMZ, right?
Now, Book of Dad is here.
Right now, okay? So let me tell you, I said, just to make sure, and actually one of the other women in the group said, you know, we want to operate in the highest level of integrity. Reach out to them. Because when I sent that original letter, it sparked an investigation. They allegedly an investigation, which was a sham, you know, whatever. For another day, another story. So I said, okay, so that Monday, it was coming up on like 3 days, and it would have been like a month since the original letter. I'm like, what's going on? I reached out to them. I said, hi, I participated in your investigation and spoke with your lawyer and gave them all the details and things like that. I haven't heard anything. It was such a sense of urgency for, you know, we're going to do an investigation on your allegations, Dr. Brandi. I said, I haven't heard anything. So I just want to double check to just see what the status is and da-da-da-da. Right. They send me a nice little terse email back saying the investigation is active and ongoing. We have no idea when it will conclude, and you will know when we get the information back. So I said, oh, okay. I talked to the ladies. I said, we're going to release the letter tomorrow. Since they don't know when ever. It could be 7 years. It's going to be, you know what I mean? It's going to be 25 years.
Stir the pot.
And listen, let me tell you, that letter came out one day. The news picked it up. I think maybe Wednesday, Thursday, the letter came out. The media picked it up the next day or so, and he was terminated within 48 hours.
Right.
I said, oh, the investigation concluded. Hey, isn't that interesting?
What timing, right?
What timing? Because 3 days ago, it was active and ongoing, and we didn't know if it was going to be during the solar eclipse. We didn't know when it was going to happen. So the executive director was terminated, lost a couple positions on some roles, and the CEO stepped down, and they are now on a pause from doing any new work with any clients. This is the last thing I'll say in like 10 seconds to kind of put a pin in this. This is what we have to understand about DEI. When you have a consultant or when you're doing it on your own, it doesn't matter. Take care of your home first. Take care of your house first. Absolutely. The purpose of me bringing it up early on to say, hey, bing, 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 bing. First of all, we are a DEI nonprofit, allegedly, in the tourism industry, but it was for us to get our house in order. And when you don't get your own house in order, this is what happens anyway. You still get publicly, shamed, unfortunately. Yep. Your dirty laundry gets aired out anyway. People lose their roles. You lose credibility. You can't take on new clients when all you had to do was really hold one individual accountable for being exclusionary. And spoiler alert, this was not a white man. This was a black man.
Wow.
It was, it's not so monolithic and so, black and white, no pun intended, when we see about DEI. There are nuances to creating a productive and constructive workplace that I think need to be addressed.
Well, hey, first of all, we're not done with you. We have more to get to on the other side. So, and you're absolutely right. Dealing with diversity is not necessarily dealing with racial issues. It's dealing with gender issues and other demographics as well that are different. But when we come back, I want you to think about something to address on the other side. Ed mentioned something about recruiting efforts. I'd like to know if you personally feel or think that diversity is better handled through recruitment or through cultural massaging, if you will, on the other side. This Book of Dad radio show, I'm Dr. Robert Benson, and Eddie and I are overwhelmed with the knowledge and professionalism of Dr. Baldwin. And we're going to finish with her when we get back. We'll be right back.
You have something special. You have greatness in you. Hello, I'm Les Brown, Mrs. Mamie Brown's baby boy. I want you to spread the word to your family members and friends to listen to LesBrownGreatnessRadio.com. Absolutely. And let me share with you why we're going to be focusing on positive things, because whatever you focus on the longest becomes the strongest. And now more than ever, when the suicide rate has increased over 33%, when the suicide rate of young children between 5 and 11 has doubled, people feeling hopeless and stressed out and powerless. We need programming that can bring out the greatness in them. And that's what we will be focused on. When you listen, it will be an experience that will transform your life. LesBrownGreatnessRadio.com. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Hey, and we're right back. Dr. Robert Benson with the Book of Dad radio show, Eddy Gee, and Dr. Baldwin. She's going to be our new co-host because she has a wealth of knowledge, and she can be the new Book of Dad radio show person. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Hey.
Oh, we can't afford her.
Okay. The royalties,
And she didn't say.
okay?
And she didn't say. She didn't say y'all can. She said okay.
No, y'all got the friends and family discount for sure.
Right on. Hey, when we left off, I was trying to get her. I want to get her, if we can, to share with the audience the approach she has. And me, I see this as a dichotomy, if you will. If you're trying to address diversity, do you try to address that diversity through recruitment and bringing in the right people into the organization, as Ed talked about when he worked for the company he worked for years ago, or deal with diversity from within with your incumbent employees? Me, I'm a federal employee, so I understand just how hard and concerted the efforts are to address just that, because the federal government is supposed to be reflective of the people who it represents, representative bureaucracy, if you will. But that, and with that being the foundation, talk to us a little bit more about how you approach the dichotomy. Is there a one that you prefer over the other, or is it something that you think can be done in concert?
Well, my background and training is in organizational development, right? So when you think about diversity, equity, and inclusion, I see that as one aspect of developing your organization. Maybe it's an employee engagement, right? There's so many different things, programs, learning and development. So it's a part of that piece for me. And so that being said, it's multifaceted. What about your recruiting and your talent pipeline? What about your programming and your professional development, not just on technical skills, but also on how you are training people to interact with each other, especially those who are different generationally, culturally, and every other DEI dimension? What about your suppliers? Are you, supporting small businesses and diverse businesses with your supplier diversity strategy? What about your board, right? So I think that it's a multifaceted approach, and because I'm more so bona fide organizational development and systems and strategic planning, that's really my training, what it has been and how I've applied it to building businesses as an entrepreneur, but also consulting with companies. That's the approach that I take, which means let's assess your entire system, your entire organization, and let's see where the hot spots are. So I will engage with clients sometimes, and they'll come in and say, we need workshops on how to treat people fairly and this and that. And then I'll say, well, the data says that actually you have too many nice managers. And this sounds counterintuitive, but your managers are so nice, they don't hold people accountable. They allow someone who's not doing their job to work right next to the person that's going above and beyond, and they've never gotten a write-up at all. So what you need is a conflict management course, equitable communications, equitable management, to help your managers understand how to address the things they don't want to address, because it's perpetuating inequity in your organization. They go, what? We thought we just had to have something about, race or gender. And a lot of times there are other more subtle things happening that still are a part of DEI. So I always say DEI doesn't feel as DEI as you think it does if you're doing it right. If you are kind of keeping it on the surface and maybe even performing, it's going to feel like race, gender, race, disability, race all the time. And it's a lot more subtle part of building a positive and functional company culture.
That's very interesting you mentioned that, because I had said it was a dichotomy, and obviously it encompasses many things. And that leads me to pick your brain a little bit further and ask you, how do you go in there? What are you using? Surveys? Are you conducting interviews before you go in and actually decide what you're going to do? What is your step one to assist an organization in taking that process on?
So the first step is just like when you go to a doctor. You're like, Doc, I got this pain right here. They're like, okay, well, tell me about it. What's going on? Okay, we're going to run some blood work. Let's just do that first, right? So I take that holistic approach. Tell me what you think is going on. I'm going to write those notes. Then I'm going to listen with my expert ears. I'm going to get a sense for probably what's really going on. I usually don't tell them early on. And to check both of our perceptions, we're going to do an organizational equity assessment. And that data is going to support us in figuring out what's going on in 4 dimensions: leadership and management, in company culture, in professional development, and policies and procedures. So it'll let us know on the back end what's really going on, where the hot spots are, where the smoke is, so that we can make sure no fires break out. And that helps to reconcile our understanding, and we go from there. Now, at that point, sometimes clients will go, oh, no, we don't want to deal with that. We uncovered something that we're not really ready to deal with, so can we just do something else? And then I say no. We give them their strategy and what their steps should be, but we will not move forward and execute something that they actually don't need just for optics. And then most of the time, they'll be grateful to move forward and start to chip away at that plan.
You said one thing, give me a second, just a second.
Yep,
you said one thing that really resonates with me, and you talked about the person who performs versus the person who doesn't. That's something that I never thought about being a part of a diversity issue, if you will. How do you see that being a diversity issue?
Well, here's the thing. Think about a performance. It's about on stage, everything that you see versus what's happening behind the scenes with the stage crew and all the logistics. So what you'll find is it's easy to perform. It's way easier to just make things look good. What does that look like sometimes? It looks like these perpetual monthly cultural acknowledgments. So February, Black History Month. Oh, can't wait, because the Blacks, they'll get another chance. Juneteenth is coming up too. Also, Women's History Month, so those are easy things to do. They're on the surface. A lot of workshops, a lot of training, a lot of talking and panels. That can be very performative because it's front end. On the back end, though, sometimes I'll tell our clients, hey, I know they want a workshop. I know everyone's chopping at the bit to figure out what the heck's going on with our DEI strategy, Dr. Brandi. First of all, your managers need training. Your leadership needs training. Your board needs training. We're not going to perform for anybody until I make sure that all of the key leaders are in alignment with DEI practices and principles. Your policies need auditing. Until the audit is done, we're not going to do any shiny workshops for all staff. So those are some of the back end things that really is a strong foundation. So it's the difference between like interior decorating, or do you want to make sure your plumbing and your electric works? I want to make sure your plumbing and your electric works, because we can go to IKEA and get some new furniture for this house at any time.
Great analogy.
And companies typically do the opposite. Yep.
Well, I think that highlights for some people how important DEI is to the operation of the corporation as well. And when it gets deep into the weeds, you're talking about affecting profit margins, you're talking about affecting production, all those things. It all works together. And a lot of times you have corporations that don't see that knot that ties them together. And they just look at it, as you said, as a cultural thing. And they don't recognize the power and the knowledge of some of the different diverse employees that they have. So that's great information. I wanted to reach out to you right now and ask you about what you're doing, what's coming up for you, and some of the things that you have in the future.
So at Millennial Ventures, people may not know we are the parent company to Social Impact Brands. So one of the things I'm excited to announce that we have launched is the Futures Leadership Network. And our job is to equip and mobilize the future leaders of tomorrow. But we have an emphasis on moral and ethical leaders. So it would make sense after I've been inspired by what we discussed in the second segment with the workplace bullying and toxic workplace experience that I went through, that our upcoming event is a virtual professional development event. It's called Courage and Conviction, Bold Women Overcoming Toxic Workplaces, where I've literally created kind of the cheat code and distilled the strategies that myself and the other women use to really go through that process of voicing our opinions, but also doing it in a way that helped us maintain our alignment with truth and dignity and stay on brand and heal after we maybe experience bad situations. So looking forward to that. Anytime in the future, if anyone's seeing this interview, feel free to go over to joinfutures.org and just email our team for the recording and the replay, and we'll be more than happy to send it over to you.
Wow. Well, hey, Dr. Brandi, this has been a great show. And as usual, all good things have to come to an end. But we're not going to say come to an end. We're going to say come to a pause and a revisit to you later. But something that I like to do normally is close out the show with a quote. So I know I bet you have a favorite quote. Why don't you share what that is with the audience?
Oh, I have a favorite. Okay, yes, I do. And I'm going to pull it up real quick so that I don't. So this is fire. Hold on.
Okay.
Here we go. This is fire. I don't know who said it or why, but this resonates with me. An army of sheep led by a lion is better than an army of lions led by a sheep. Did y'all catch that?
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's fire. And it's about leadership. That's why I love that quote. Yeah.
Wow. Well, you heard it on Book of Dad Radio Show. Dr. Brandi, thank you so much for joining us. And my main man, Eddy Gee, as usual. You got another great one, my man.
Yes, sir.
It's been the Book of Dad Radio Show. Dr. Robert Benson, and we'll talk to you next time.